Yellarigu Namaskara. I'm Aruna Nagraj, a member of C4C, and I welcome all of you to this sixth episode of C4C Conversations. So, this is a series wherein we have an expert on any appropriate subject of interest to citizens, talk to us, and educate us regarding the same. At the outset, I request Rajkumar Dugar, founder of Citizens for Citizens, to give us a brief overview of C4C Conversations as well as C4C. Meanwhile, I request all of you to kindly keep your mobiles on mute and write down questions or feedback if you have any. At the end of the talk, we shall take up a few of these questions, and if there is time, a few more questions can be answered live. Raj, please go ahead now.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೆ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಮತ್ತೆ ಸುಸ್ವಾಗತ. Today is the sixth episode of C4C Conversations. This series started on 30th August 2020 with a program by Uday Kumar of Inscription Stones of Bangalore. And the subject was a journey of Bengaluru from Antarctica to 1536 CE. The second program on 26th September was on Bengaluru's Pete and Kote by Yashashwini Sharma from Aesthetic Architects. Next followed a talk on waste segregation and eco-bricks by Venkatesh from Paryavaran Sanrakshan Gatividhi on 5th November. The fourth C4C program was on 28th November was by pulmonologist Dr. Srivatsa Lokeshwaran on Breathe Your Way Out of COVID-19 Pandemic. And last month on 24th December, we had the fifth C4C Conversations program by Dr. Mamata, IAS Additional Mission Director, Sakala Mission on Karnataka Guarantee of Services to Citizen Act. In today's episode, we have taken up a very important subject related to our cohabitants, animals, and how to coexist with them in a mutually beneficial and ethical manner, and to understand some of the laws related to animals. Today's subject is very interesting for all of us since it is to do with harmonious coexistence of human beings and animals which have adapted to an urban setting. To aid this, there are rules and laws which we need to follow and procedures which we must become aware of. Let us remember that long ago there was no urban setting. As urbanization happened, we humans have actually encroached on the territories of both flora and fauna, and which are now threatened with extinction in some cases. Becoming aware of certain important aspects of the coexistence is important both in the short and long term. And today, indeed, we are lucky to have a multifaceted personality who is also an expert on this subject to enlighten us. Let me take this opportunity to also inform you that C4C is continuing to strive for improving our surroundings with some focus on public transport and traffic-related matters. On 4th January 2021, after a long campaign by several concerned citizens along with C4C, Bengaluru finally succeeded in having train services to the airport. Of course, these are skeletal services, but they have a huge potential, and the more we use them, the better they can get. We need to make them popular so that we can ask for additional services, improvement in timings, in travel time, etc. Very soon, hopefully in a couple of weeks, work on suburban train project of Bengaluru is set to take off in a big way. At Bayapanhalli, a new railway station named Sir M. Vishweshwaraya Terminal will be commissioned shortly as one of the best railway stations in the country. Track doubling, quadrupling, electrification, station improvements are all happening, and as the year progresses, we will see better railway services for local commute also. Despite COVID pandemic, C4C's efforts towards better traffic flow, tree planting, better civic services from various government agencies like Bbmp, BESCOM, BWSSP, etc. continue, and C4C is definitely satisfied with the positive outcomes until now and is very hopeful of further improvements to the quality of life in Nama Bengaluru. With this brief overview, I now request Aruna Nagraj to introduce our speaker, Priya Chetty Rajgopal, who will enlighten us on today's subject. Dhanyavadagalu.
Thanks, Raj. So, Priya Chetty Rajgopal, a name that rings bells in business, industry, government, and among other civilians. And why not? Because her interests and passion are wide-ranging and really deep-rooted. As an impactful business person and a CXO consultant, she has been or is connected with many major organizations and platforms. Multiversal Advisory, TIE Bangalore, Akshara Foundation, Civilia, RGF Executive Search, Stanton Chase India, DBS Corporate Services, Alliance Business Center Network, Indo-American Chambers of Commerce, CII Women's Business Leadership Forum, Common Purpose India, and Mount Carmel College. Priya was confirmed the Indira Gandhi Priyadarshini Award for Excellence in 1997, recognized by the Guild of Women Achievers in 2000, selected by the British government for the Chevening Scholarship in 2004, and nominated Femina Woman of the Year 2017. As active civic evangelist and a committed visible champion of women's leadership and gender diversity, she is highly regarded for her views in this space and is a sought after speaker in both industry fora and academic circles. A transformational leader and a seasoned campaigner. She co-founded CFB, Citizens for Bangalore, which architected the famed Steel Flyover Beta movement in Bangalore, one of the strongest and most memorable of citizen campaigns. She's equally committed to heritage as the founder of Heritage Beku and the less visible cause of animal welfare. A columnist in her spare time, she remains passionate about executive search, uh, women's causes, urban spaces, and animal rescue, and not necessarily in that order. Priya is an extremely passionate, committed, articulate, and truly concerned citizen who devotes a lot of time and effort and energy to many civic matters. To be successful, in addition to all of this, one needs to invest heavily on educating oneself. Among many other subjects, she's an authority on various aspects of animal welfare, not just in knowledge, but also in the genuine, wholehearted compassion for the animal world. As citizens in an urban environment where we are the occupiers of space belonging to the flora and fauna, it is important for us to understand the various aspects of animal related matters, be it to do with pet or non pet or stray animals, the relevant rules and laws, our duties as citizens, our safeguards, etc. Today, Bangalore can proudly say that we have an authority in Priya Chetty Rajgopal on these matters. So let's go ahead to know them better. And I now invite Priya to go ahead and spread the good word, which is so good at. Ladies and gentlemen, Priya Chetty Rajgopal.
Thank you, Aruna. Thank you very much for that. As a friend and a colleague, to have an introduction makes me feel very happy indeed. Uh, Thank you for the kind words. And I'm going to go straight into talking about the one thing that I think I resonates very deeply with me. They say that until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened. I think that's true because till about 20, 22 years ago, I was petrified of animals. I would cross the road if I saw a dog, and if you had a dog in your house, I would say, please, 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 could you tie up your dog before I come in? So, yeah, I've come a long way. And like they say, there's nothing like a reformed criminal. So here am I trying very hard to make up for the number of years that I have probably not uh, sort of been part of this wonderful and mysterious and utterly loving world. While I say all that, I'm deeply aware that as citizens, we are stuck between a rock and a hard place. Raj put it very well, and so did Aruna, about the fact that we are really encroaching, as far as urban spaces are concerned, into the spaces of animals, whether it is wildlife or whether it is domesticated animals. And there is an odd kind of symbiotic relationship that needs, in some way, some monitoring. I see a rock and a hard place because we all have our lives to lead. I don't particularly like to be chased by 20 dogs when I'm going down the street, nor do I want to see somebody abusing an animal, nor do I want to be exposed to people who are uncivic on the roads. So that's all very well. But in probably earlier days, if I didn't want something, I would just get rid of it. Things aren't that simple now. And I think that's what's the crux of this conversation. It's about being a compassionate city, about finding space for everything and everyone. So if I had to have this conversation 5 years ago and now, it would be very different for two reasons. One is because I think I've tried to evolve a little bit more because I've kept my ear close to the ground. And the second thing is the laws themselves have changed very much for the better. So let's quickly talk about, as I said, remember the word a rock and a hard place. As a citizen, I have certain rights. As a compassionate city or a constitution, I have certain duties. So the balance between them is what really is important. So let's jump in straight away into something that I think we all need to know. As far as the first thing that comes to our minds when we talk about urban animals is essentially dogs. And we've had enough of conversations around the street, so-called street dog menace in the front pages of newspapers and so on. So let's talk about the fact that in some ways, in not so good ways, in well, we love our street dogs, but not everybody does. The city has gone to the dogs in some way. We have to understand that there are laws as far as handling street animals is concerned. So, as of now, and since we are talking citizen to citizen, right, and citizens for citizens, we understand how wards are, we understand zones. So, let's use the same framework to talk about what we need, which is the focus of the entire man animal conflict. And let's take dogs as being the primary one, is the assumption that um, the constitution of course implies something very specifically, that compassion to animals is kind of enshrined there. So that's one point. The second thing is, as far as this the stray dog rules are concerned, 2001, or the Supreme Court orders are concerned, you cannot, and I would say this very slowly, you cannot relocate or cull dogs on the street. They're considered to have as much right to existence as you and I do, and therefore they are allowed and expected to be in their territory. So, this law about relocation or culling is something that is very important. And no argument in courts can be heard on this issue except at the Supreme Court. So, it's a very, very sensitive issue. Now, I'm going back to the rock and the hard place. So, wonderful. So, these are the rules. But heck, I can't have 200 dogs living in my locality. So, what do I do? Look at the structure that has been built in. So the government has decreed that all civic organizations, so in our case in Bangalore, it's the Bbmp, right? So the Bbmp will take care of animal birth control and anti-rabies vaccination. So the short form for that is ABC, which is sterilization, and ARV, which is anti-rabies. The assumption being that if we have, say, 10 dogs in our neighborhood, once they are neutered, there are no more pups coming on the street, which is so sad. You see them run over, you see them, hurt. And we've already, Aruna and I have had some very, very tragic cases that have happened as recently as today. So it's very hard to see this. And also it's bad for a vicinity to have this kind of thing happening. Therefore, by neutering, you're taking care of the population. So there are 10 dogs, and as time goes on it becomes 8, and as life goes on it becomes another 6, and maybe one or two other dogs from other territories may come in, but the population remains at 4 or 5, which is manageable. We all manage to feed, they serve as security. In fact, this amazing statistic has been that every time there's a reduction in street dogs, or there's been some kind of a case where some dogs are killed in large numbers in a locality, the crime goes up exponentially. So who's been trying to poison these dogs. It's primarily people like this who want to be able to make a neighborhood vulnerable, or steal or rob from a particular locality. The second thing is anti-rabies vaccination. Now, why do I mention that? It's the court assumes that while we have 5 or 6 or 10 dogs, it's all very well, but if one of them have rabies, which is still a disease that a zoonotic disease that exists in India, you run the risk of rabies. So by injecting them and by having repeat vaccinations over the years, your dogs are certified against rabies, and therefore you are very unlikely to get rabies. So the two issues, which is relocation and culling, are handled by animal birth control and anti-rabies vaccination. So the population is reduced and the safety is addressed because the dogs do not have rabies or are vaccinated against rabies. So That sounds very hunky-dory because everything is good. So you have a lowered number of dogs, you have vaccinated dogs, so everything is okay. But it's not really the case, because as far as administration is concerned, it's very difficult to be able to filter it down and have a good system that works. And therefore, we do have a lot of man-animal conflict, and we have a lot of areas where people are very upset with feeding or with dogs spreading, and I do understand that. So that's why I go back to the phrase between a rock and a hard place. So as a citizen, what do you need to do? You can crib, like I used to do maybe 22 years ago, saying, kya hai, itne kutte pade hue, those kind of things. Or you can be part of the problem and the cribbing, or you can be part of the solution, which is call your zone, get those people to come in and vaccinate and neuter your dogs, and make sure that at least your locality is well taken care of. We have, as Aruna will tell you, a number of canine squads all over the city, which are focused on human communities also, to make sure that the dogs are well taken care of, and you as a human community are kept safe. So as far as Bbmp is concerned, you need to know that we have 8 zones, just like Bangalore has 8 zones. So there's 8 Bbmp zones for animals. And we have, unfortunately, 3.1 lakh dogs as far as the last census is concerned. So that is a significant number, and I appreciate that. We do need to be able to address this over the large space that Bangalore is, and the kind of you know permeable space that we have around it. So you need to know few rules around the stray dog management and animal laws. But essentially, what you really need to know is you by no means can either relocate or color dog. You cannot stop somebody, and as per all the circulars, stop somebody from feeding a stray dog. You cannot. So that goes, it's a non-bailable offense. So you can actually be jailed if you try and do that. You cannot interfere in somebody caring for an animal, or you cannot stop an apartment from apartment association cannot stop you from having a pet dog. Resident welfare association cannot bar anybody from having pet dogs or looking after street dogs. So these are the rules which are written in stone. So we can't do anything about that. So once again, I go back to the phrase between a rock and a hard place. So we are in that position. So if you don't like animals, it's a hard place to be in. I understand. As a citizen, I'm between a rock and a hard place, because I meet people who don't like animals, and I meet people who are very caring about animals, and I meet the animals themselves who need some support. I mean, they don't have a voice. So we have to do the right thing. So I'm going to remind you about that phrase again, which means we as citizens have to do just that little bit more to be able to make sure that we strike the balance, and most importantly, we keep ourselves and our children safe, right? You'd be happy to know that people like Aruna and I with the CJ Memorial Trust and CABC have also helped set up the first rabies helpline in the city. It's a second in the country that has been set up. So it's something that we have done because we understand this issue. Um, I want to talk a little bit about this issue of feeding and management of dogs on the street. Now, it's all very well that the government has given us such leeway to say that dogs should be fed, and if street feeders would like to feed their dogs, they're perfectly in they're perfectly allowed to do so. But don't you think that as dog lovers, or as um, um, as people who care for our community, don't you think we also need to have responsibilities and duties? So you can have rights, but you can't have it without responsibilities and duties. So it's important for feeders to try and feed in a sustained place, in a place that is designated. Do it where there are no children around or large groups of people. Make sure that there's not too many fights happening over food. Make sure it's done in a very clean and neat way. Most people put it on a small newspaper and then dispose of it later. So there are certain rights. So you have every right to be able to call out people who make your locality dirty if they do not follow their own duties. So nothing, no responsibility, no rights that have been given to people who are animal lovers are not cannot they have to be offset also by responsibilities. And I believe that as people who are on both sides of the fence, I believe very strongly that people who feed should be responsible. People who are pet parents should make sure their dogs are leashed in public. And we have put in a very strong recommendation to the Bbmp in the new pet licensing rules to make sure that the fines for being irresponsible with your dog, or not picking up poop, for example, is stringent. So while that comes into play, please remember the basic BBMP littering fine of 500 rupees is anyway applicable if somebody litters. So if your dog litters, or if you see somebody littering, it's a BBMP fine of 500. And if somebody gives you that staid example of saying, oh, but street dogs are littering, so why can't mine? Two wrongs don't make a right. And for example, a child who's using a railway line because he or she does not have a toilet to go to, you cannot say that just because that poor child doesn't have the access, that I must also go there on the railway line. You know, these are the stupid, specious arguments that I'm tired of hearing people say. We need to step it up and start behaving like responsible feeders and pet parents so that the human community who may or may not like dogs is also looked after. The health of the children, the health of people in the community is very important to all of us, as dog lovers or not, and we need to take care of it. But we need to know that as each ward or zone that we belong to, we must know that we can escalate this issue to our local assistant director of the BBMP and make sure that the dogs in our area are neutered. Very often, at our own levels, I have seen resident welfare associations, and Raj, you may have noticed the situation we had at Srikantan layout quite recently, where the RWA did not know that it was perfectly legal to feed street dogs, and in fact, gherowed a poor girl. Late in the evening to say that you cannot feed or whatever, and and they actually hit the dog with a bat for no reason. So and that goes under cruelty to animals. So there'll be a BBMP case put against that person if they do that. You need to know that this would happen. So the resident welfare associations and the apartment associations have to be a lot more uh, supportive of this kind of activity and make sure, rather than complain, just up the neuter and the vaccination so they make sure they are safe and the area is safe. So once the zones and the wards, you know who's doing what, you can escalate. People like us, for example, like Aruna is in Cunningham Road, I'm this side of town. We have a very good network that makes sure that the dogs are taken care of. Many people ask us about things like, what is the issues around animal cruelty? We are in the process of setting up Karnataka Animal Welfare Board. It's set up, but it's very, very fledgling at the moment. We have an SPCA for Bangalore, which will be coming up shortly. So you can escalate by calling up a number by saying, I saw this incident of cruelty. So cruelty would also mean, for example, you know, tying a dog on a very short leash, not giving it food or water, beating an animal. We've recently had a case in Hulimavu where a retired police inspector actually ran over a sleeping 11-year-old dog who already had arthritis and could not get up to avoid the car, ran over him deliberately. Now, a case of cruelty has been booked, an FIR has been booked by BBMP directly, which is unusual. And they have made sure that the person has been arrested. Of course, he got out on station bail, and a car was also seized. The cruelty cases are being escalated. They are now, people are taking it more seriously. And as part of the discussion, I would like to be able to stress the fact that cruelty to animals, as documented everywhere in the world, and we haven't been able to do that in India because we haven't followed up. Cruelty to animals is very closely linked with criminal and uh, deviant behavior in the US and many other countries. So if you are likely to be cruel to an animal, you're more likely to be beating somebody or be convicted of abuse, serial murder, rape, pedophilia, etc. And these are things which are actually been proven. And we are very, very concerned, what it really means. I'll give you a small example. When I don't know whether you remember the terrible case of the veterinary doctor in Hyderabad who was raped at gunpoint by some truck drivers and left in a terrible condition and finally died. At the same time that was happening, we had a case of 5 children between the ages of 3 and 12 who beat with stones, big stones, and with iron rods, 5 puppies in a construction site at Whitefield almost to death. And the video was with me, and I knew at that point what those children were going to grow up to be. It was a clear comparison. We knew. So this is when the police says we need to prevent crime, you need to be able to address it. So again, we addressed the issue. We did not look at saying, oh my God, somebody should send those children to jail, which all of us, when we've seen what happened to those pups, we were in tears ourselves. It was horrible to see what was going on. But the children themselves came from very abused households. So we followed the law, which means we made sure they were attended to by a juvenile court, that they went to a counseling helpline, and we found out a lot of things, and the children themselves were going through a lot of issues. Today, those children are going through counseling, conversations, better schooling, and hopefully they will be in a position where some correction will happen. So is it a good thing or a bad thing? I really don't know. But what I'm trying to make you understand is, as a human community, we need to keep ourselves safe. Today, the same retired inspector who has done this crime, or so we believe, please go back and look at his record. I'm sure you'll find a lot of interesting things in his file, because somebody who does this goes over for the second time. 11-year-old street dog is likely to do other things as well. So please understand, as a human community, there are linkages, and we need to be respectful of that and understand that we need to keep our community safe as well. So there are rules as far as breeding is concerned, as far as pet shops is concerned. We obviously support adopt, don't shop, because there's a huge number of dogs available. The breeders are bringing in all sorts of dogs which are not healthy, diseased, etc. And it is terrible to see the dogs being pushed back into the system, being given up, and people are so casual about their pet dogs. It's amazing. So we need to be able to educate people a little better. So as citizens, it is strongly recommended that we adopt from a shelter or from the streets. We currently have at least about 6 beautiful puppies always available for adoption, and they are so beautiful. They're Even our Prime Minister has said, be Indian, and I wouldn't say buy Indian, but be Indian and adopt Indian, because these Indies are beautiful. Uh, we need to know that the Constitution protects stray dogs in the light to rifen territory. We need to know that the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act may be 50 rupee fine, but it has up to 5-year imprisonment, and it's about time we started implementing that. Um, there is something called the Animal Welfare Board of India, which has got very strict rules, which we have already discussed, on protecting feeders, pets, and dogs. And we follow the WHO guidelines on stray dog management. This is how it is, that you neuter and vaccinate rather than kill, because that does not work. It's been proven in many, many countries. The reality is that while all this is very good, our state shelters are small, um, underfunded. Our private shelters are woefully underfunded. They are struggling for every bit of money to be able to keep running, and therefore it's critical for the BBMP and departments of animal husbandry to do more to make sure that the animals are protected, that we are able to bring down population, and make sure that yes, we can look after the 4 or 5 animals on our street, but we can't look after 100. So we must make sure that happens and our human community remains safe by being very active citizens. There are a number of different laws on this, which is, there are punishable offenses on feeding. The most interesting one, which we all need to know as citizens, because we either are part of a resident welfare association or we are part of an apartment association. No apartment association can ban pet dogs. You cannot. Otherwise, you run the risk of losing your registration at the for your apartment association, the Registrar of Cooperative Societies Act or whatever. There is no way a resident welfare association can ban anybody keeping pet dogs or ban street dogs in their area. The only thing which they can do is to diligently request um, for neuter and vaccination. Please know this, that this is non-negotiable. What happens is, and why I stress this is, because people feel that it's animal lovers who are doing this. We are not. If tomorrow the Supreme Court says kill all the dogs, I pray and hope they don't, but if they do, we may not like it, but that's the law. The law currently protects animals. So we are not the ones who are implementing it. It's the courts, it is the laws of the land which protect it. We happen to be animal lovers that are caring about the human community being safe. And therefore, we are stepping up the ante to make sure that the BBMP and the Animal Husbandry Board, such as it is functioning at top capacity to have dogs neutered and vaccinated. So you are safe. Our children are safe. That's what we do. So do not point the finger at people like us who are saying, oh, you people, we don't do anything about this. However, if any of these associations like resident welfare or apartment associations were to indulge in these activities, they are in the wrong. And the police also is being informed that they need to up their knowledge on these and make sure that the conflict that is happening between residents and uh, and dog lovers, some non-dog lovers and dog lovers, is reduced. Because today, I'll give you a small example. I like people with suppose I say I like people with short hair, but Priya has long hair. Let's get rid of everybody with long hair. I have a right. I don't like people with long hair. That's my choice. So unfortunately, the constitution does not allow it. But secretly, I said, no, no, no. What you'll do is we'll put these people with long hair and put them into a corral and send them out. Yes, I can think about it, but I can't do it because the constitution does not allow it. That could be on religion, it could be on race, it could be on now the question of animals. So that's a reality. So let's not be idiotic and try and change the reality. If you do want to change it, please go fight it at the Supreme Court. Do not argue with us or with anybody else, because this is the law of the land. And you can't take it out on the people who are trying to help everybody. That is, help the human community, the dogs, the children. We are trying to help everybody and make sure that things are going well. So once we understand that these are the laws and we cannot negotiate, life becomes a little easier. Otherwise, the next time somebody comes in and says you can't feed that dog, somebody will just take out this law which says it's a punishable offense in case anybody causes restriction, prohibition, or inconvenience to a person feeding a street dog, or resorts to removal or dislocation of any street dog. That's the law. So you will have a problem if you do that. So it's better not to. And intimidation also comes under an IPC law. So we don't want to get into that area. Having said that, please understand that we are very, very careful to draw and respect boundaries. So people who are animal lovers should be respectful of the boundaries of that locality. They must be respectful also of what needs to be done. And you can't feed a dog without neutering and vaccinating them. You can't say, I can only do this, I won't do that. The Bbmp has made the facility, make it happen. So broadly, I mean, there are a whole lot of things that we can do. We can make a difference by understanding the laws, not breaking them, ensure our friends and co-citizens understand them, build communities. Like we are part of a community. If you have an issue, we'll help you. We'll try and make it happen, provided we are all aligned. Work with government like the Bbmp to ensure everything is done. Note and escalate cases of animal cruelty as and when happen. Encourage people to be responsible. For example, the spay, neuter, vaccinate. We ask everybody with pet dogs to neuter their dogs. Because I don't know whether any of you know, but if you have a dog that you mate and have puppies with, you have to be registered as a dog breeder. Did you know that? So today, with my own dog, if I want to have, I'm saying, so must have one set of puppies. I can, but I have to be registered as a breeder with the Animal Welfare Board of India. And then I can. So people should understand their rules. Adopt, don't shop, tagging your dog, banning pupping mills, avoiding home breeding, making sure your dogs are licensed is very, very important. We also have rights. We must insist that people follow the law. We must insist that BBMP execute the ABC and ARV program in our area. We must ensure that our cooperator, our BBMP area engineers, our health officers are informed and aware. Half the time, the problems come from there. So I have just a couple of minutes before we end because I know it's very close to 5:40. Please also know illegal slaughter is it can only be done at a registered abattoir. So if you see slaughter, you can report it. Social media has become our biggest friend. If something happens, you can register it immediately. In fact, the current case of Hulimavu only happened because the CCTV camera captured what was going on. So social media is a good way to escalate things which are causing you an issue. But of course, if you're stupid enough to want to escalate that somebody's feeding dogs in my area, then somebody will have to tell you, I'm sorry, but that's legal. And you're escalating it, making yourself look extremely foolish. So that's why knowing the law is very important. Dogs off leash, pooping in public, attacking humans are responsibility of the humans. If my dog were to attack you, please sue me. Please do. Or I will make sure that hospital bills are taken care of, but sue me because I think we all need to be responsible. I do not subscribe to animal lovers who want a one-sided view on everything. That is, I'll be an animal lover and I'll do what I want and I'll walk over. No, be responsible, take responsibility. So you need to know we're moving towards a place where places like Bhutan and Jaipur have zero rabies. And we can all max out animal compassion and living together if we all do our little bit and we do it together, whether that's information, So nothing's stopping us right now. So let's do it. I also want to quickly end with the fact that it's not always about dogs. The dogs are the largest issue we have to deal with. So cats, people have birds. Many people may not know that having parrots is illegal. It's wildlife technically. So we have to be extremely careful about first we shouldn't buy, but we should be very careful about the kind of pets that we have. And pets are families. So I hope that all of us do the right thing at the right time. And I hope and pray that we realize that the ones who teach us about humanity aren't always human. The most humanity I have learned has been from people on four legs, biggest hearts and the largest loyalty. And I'm grateful. I'm sorry for the time I've lost in my life, which I did not know. But the last 20, 22 years of my life have been wonderful because I have seen humanity in ways I never expected to. So thank you so much for the time and for allowing me to cover whatever little I could. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Um, yeah. Um, let's just go through some of the questions that we have in the chat box here, and then we can open it out to everyone that's here. So, Rajdugar says, what is the rabies helpline number?
Yes, I will just give me a second. I'll just give this to you. I have it. You should be very proud of the fact that this has been set up to make sure there's any case. It's only 9 to 5 at the moment, but if you could make a note, it is 6364893322. I'm also putting it on the chat box so you know 6364893322. This line is the rabies helpline is 9 to 5 only at the moment, and it is manned by CARE, one of the best NGOs I think in the country. So that is the helpline for rabies or for any escalation. In addition, of course, you have your local Bbmp helpline for your own assistant director who can help you on your own issues.
We have another question, Priya. Who are the enforcing officials or authorities for the laws related to animals? So, who are the so you spoke about a lot of laws and things. So, who is responsible for enforcing these laws relating to animals?
Okay, so there are two different, in fact, there probably be three different answers to that. So street dogs come under the purview of BBMP. BBMP as a city authority is responsible and is the kind of a de facto owner of this property, such as it is. Okay. So when it comes to enforcement around street dogs, even stray cattle, that also surprisingly is covered, it's BBMP that is your enforcing authority. When it comes to pet dogs or pets or any other, largely pets, I would say, then you are covered under the Karnataka Animal Welfare Board. And for us in Bangalore, since this conversation is about Bangalore, is the District SPCA Bangalore Urban, which has just been set up. So it's very new. I wish I could, it was a little bit more detailed. And the helpline for that is 1962. But it is work in progress, let me tell you. The correct number to call, technically, for a cruelty case will be 100. And that's how it's done all India. Having said that, obviously the system needs some structure, needs some fleshing out. So you'll have to give us some time to be able to do that. On the third issue, which is wildlife, we are so blessed to have such amazing wildlife authorities. We have the PFA, we have the ARRC, we have WRRC, we have organizations that really do so much of wonderful work for rescuing monkeys or snakes, etc. So when it comes to enforcement, you come under the Wildlife Authority. So the NGOs are these, but the enforcement is done by, again, the forestry department. So BBMP forestry will be able to handle that. And I think there's also an overlapping on the BBMP, sorry, on the Karnataka Animal Welfare Board.
Thanks, Priya.
I'm not too
Um,
sure whether I answered that question completely because enforcement has two aspects. One is what I was talking about in terms of, the ABC, that is the neuter, and the ARV, which is the rabies vaccination. And one is about enforcement of cruelty, anti-cruelty. So I don't know, Raj, if that was your question, if you can just tell me if I've answered that, you want some more inputs.
Basically, for example, if you're talking about health, that is cleanliness, we call the health inspector. So in those terms, I want to know if there is any particular official you call in case of animal related matter in BBMP.
Yeah. So in case that's where we get into zones. So like we have Renuka for health in our east zone. So we have assistant directors, uh, zonal assistant directors across 8 zones. So those numbers are available. I'm happy to share that with you.
Sure.
We have a kind of a general line, but the general BBMP helpline will also work because they direct the call to the individual associate directors
Okay.
and they will handle it. Below that, I just want to, since you've asked me, I will let you know. Each of these zones have a contractor who handles the actual animal birth control at the hospital levels and the vaccinations. Those zonal contractors are actually very competent because they are animal welfare registered organizations. So we have seen many times when we've called them directly for something. For example, in East, we have the facility at Queen's Veterinary Hospital. And when there's been an emergency, on a case of a neutering or a rabies, they have responded pretty quickly. But technically, as far as dogs are concerned, that is what you do. As far as wildlife is concerned, it's different. As far as pets is concerned, it's different.
So, Priya, would it be safe to say that it's the safest thing to do, or the easiest thing to do, is call the zonal assistant director for animal husbandry (BBMP), and they will redirect us to, let's say, the forest department or district SPC and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
When in doubt, call the
Yes, I
zonal
think
agent.
so.
When in doubt,
That,
call
yeah,
the zonal
since you
agent.
mentioned that, can I just say one more thing? The good thing is, as citizens, because most of us have come from a corporate or a business background, is we've also created a very strong structure. So for people who want to neuter and vaccinate to keep their dogs safe and their community safe, we have also a number of WhatsApp groups which are private, which are citizen run across these 8 zones. That's one. The second thing is we also have on the net something called Citizens for Animal Birth Control, where any questions about this is put up. So in my zone, these are the dogs. What happened? Will I, all that is put in and it's actioned. And things are starting to happen. So we also have forgotten that we have, in addition to calling, we also have social media and other escalations that make things very immediate. In today's world, everybody wants stuff like that. And it's not a bad ask because sometimes the person who's hurt or the animal that is affected gets a faster reaction. That's fine. That's fine. Aruna, sorry, I interrupted you.
Uh, no, that's. I think that's clear. Thanks for answering that. I think that's clear, Priya. Can we go to the next question? We've got another question from Arvind, who says, whom to call to vaccinate a street dog or a puppy? A street dog or a puppy?
Okay, I feel really strange answering this question because the one who's been doing this and carrying them in her arms has been Aruna. She's been one of those amazing people who has taken such trouble to get things done. And we've had 5 puppies in Vasant Nagar who she has made sure were vaccinated, etc. Let me break up vaccination into two bits, right? The first thing is uh, one is the anti-rabies vaccination. So for a street puppy, you don't do it before 45 days. It is counterproductive. So the puppy has to be at least 45 days before you vaccinate them. And then there's a booster a month later. There's also something else called a 7-in-1, which is protects you against CD, which is a terrible disease called canine distemper, leptospirosis, hives, and a few other diseases, which are viral or carried in the air or water, etc. So there are 2 different injections. One is the 7-in-1, which is basically the CD vaccine, and one is the ARV, which is the anti-rabies vaccine. So you can do 2 things. You can take the puppy to BBMP and have it done at your nearest BBMP center, or you can call them and have them do it but you can't ask them to come in and do it for one dog. So it's better if we get it, we have like 5 or 6 dogs that we can get it done at a time. The BBMP anyway does what they call ring vaccinations. They anyway do a lot of vaccinations in areas every 3, 4 months. So you can call them in and ask them to do it. If I were in
Got
your
it.
place, I would want to, if I were in your place, I would just, call a private vet or take the puppies to for example, the Queen's Veterinary Hospital or anywhere else. The rabies vaccinations are free. So you can get them vaccinated and bring them back.
Thanks, Priya. Khalid Mekri says, Good evening, Priya. Whether a pet census and a link to its owner, like done overseas, can be mooted and have it maintained by animal welfare.
Yeah. I'm completely in agreement with you, Khalid, on this. I think it's critical because how do you know what the problem is unless you have the metrics and the data to resolve it? So you will not believe it took us maybe 2 years to get the census done. And this was done finally because we got in World Veterinary Services, which is WVS in Goa, to come in, partner with the BBMP to get the census done. And that is when we discovered that we have 3.41 lakh dogs on the street. And therefore, if we had worked harder 3, 4 years ago, we would have been much better off. So while we hate it, let's worry about the now. And the now means we've got to start making sure that we really dial up the efforts. So I'm in complete agreement with you that the census must be done. And the census, I would add, not just for stray dogs, but as you rightly said, for pet census. And we have been, I mean, I'm so glad you mentioned that because we've been pushing for this for the last 4 or 5 years. Let me tell you, as of 3 years ago, the total number of, as per the records, the total number of pet dogs in Bangalore, hold your breath, were 211. I've seen 211 in Cubbon Park on one day. Okay. So that was a census. So we, as CJ Memorial Trust, went on an overdrive saying, start the darn pet licensing. So the only way we were able to make sense of it is when we said, there's also a licensing fee of 100 rupees. The poor BBMP never makes any money on any of these things. They're only spending money. So the first time we did the pet licensing, I mean, you will not believe we licensed 375 dogs. And then we did another 500 the next time we did this. So people are willing to, get this done. And census is important because we also know that almost 30% of the rabies cases that come in are from pets because people are so irresponsible. They don't vaccinate their own dogs. So when we link up the issue, don't forget what I said about being between a rock and a hard place. One of those things are that pet owners or animal feeders or animal lovers have to be responsible. So you can't be a pet lover and have a dog in your apartment and say, I won't do vaccination, I won't leash, I won't do this. Sorry, you have to do it. So when you have a pet license, the pet license very clearly says that vaccinations are up to date. So that's the reason why pet license is given, because the dog, you have the owner's name, you have details of the address, you have details of the pet's health, but most importantly, you have a proof from the veterinarian that the animal has been vaccinated for rabies as well as CD, etc. So yes, that's very important, and I think we should dial it up. I think you should wait for a little while, and you'll see a lot more activity around pet licensing, and we will hopefully have all the pets that are here in Bangalore covered under the license because apartments are now asking for the license for good reason.
I think that's all the questions we have. Is there
No,
anything else?
there is some one more from Rakesh Singh. Animal Welfare Board of India provides ID cards for animals or birds feeders if people face any problem from society or local police. I really don't know what exactly is the meaning of that, but probably.
I'm happy to jump in. And Rakesh, you're absolutely right. This actually started in the days when people were being actually attacked when they fed dogs. Okay, so I have a young boy who called me up on Saturday, and he says he went to a place to feed dogs, and those people actually surrounded him and said, "We want those dogs to die, and if you keep feeding them, they won't die." Or it's some of the stuff that is faced is really sad. And for us, I mean, obviously we have seen the eyes of those dogs, so we can't talk from a distance and talk about metrics and data. For us, we see soft fur and you know, loving eyes, and for us it hurts. So the Animal Welfare Board, in its Chennai avatar, actually gave out something called feeder cards. It took me 4 years to get mine. My neighbor got it in 1 month. But it basically just gives you your name, number, and area that you work with a photograph. It has no purpose except for, yes, exactly. Thank you so much. I have mine too.
Mhm.
Thank you, Rakesh. Thank you for showing that. So it has actually no purpose in the sense it has no legal significance, but it gets the police off your back. It gets those people off your back because now suddenly you have something official which you can show. So it's a good thing to have. Right now, they do not have feeder cards anymore. It's called colony feeder cards that are available. And yes, you can apply for them at Animal Welfare Board of India on the website if you so desire. Thank you for that, Rakesh. You can turn your
Yeah,
screen off now.
yes. Okay, we have a few more minutes, if you don't mind, Priya. Priya, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
I think Rakesh will have to take the screen off.
yes,
Rakesh, can you take the screen off, please? Yeah.
yes, now
Yes,
it's
thank
fine.
you very much, Rakesh.
Okay, before I ask my question, is there anybody else who wants to ask any question right now? Unmute yourself and please ask. Anyone? Go ahead, please, quickly. Khalid, are you trying to ask some question? You're unmuted yourself. Okay, Priya, I want to know certain scenarios which I have received as messages during this program. One is somebody is taking his pet dog with him, but it is unleashed and he is just walking with it. So there's somebody else who's walking and the dog goes towards him casually, of course, but the person gets scared and he looks at the owner and the owner says, no, no, don't worry, nothing is going to happen. He's not going to bite you. What is this situation? What is the law says about the, and how does one take care of this?
Okay, that's a bit of a gray area right now. I'll just tell you what we do in Carbon Park. We are absolutely rabid about the fact that your dogs must be leashed in public places in the park, and off leash we have the dog park for you to come in and be free and play around. We want your dog to be free, but in public areas we have to respect the fact that people have differential views and fear levels on dogs. So the ones I would be most unafraid of are your big retrievers and Alsatians and Rottweilers. They don't do squat. The little Shih Tzus and the Dachshunds will go straight for your legs. And it's happened to me 2 days ago in Kavan Park. So they say that, oh, my dog is very friendly. Are that's your point of view. I have seen older people trip and fall. So if you're going to take, don't make comparisons about street dogs all the time. I gave you the other comparison. When you are a responsible person and you have taken the responsibility, I'm happy to share with you a lovely form that we made called the Responsible Pet Parent Pledge. We asked parents to say, if I have a pet, I will do all of these things. So please leash your dogs and please make sure you pick up. But the law on leashing right now is a little gray. I have to tell you that. But when the new pet licensing comes in, I can categorically tell you that there will be requirements to leash your dogs in public places. And if there's a poop fine, which is 500, and it gets, I think, double the second time you do it. So that will come a little later. Right now, for poop, you're under the Bbmp normal litter license, which is 500. So please feel free to point it out, tell the Bbmp person this guy is littering, and have him pay the 500 rupee fine.
Who is the
But leashing is,
who is the
I think you
enforcing
should tell
authority?
them. Hmm?
Who is the enforcing authority in Bbmp or department for this poop related matter?
Whoever handles the littering, which is the solid waste management, the same person. So it will be essentially your health officer.
Okay.
Yeah, who's responsible, and your marshals of course can come in and do it. But leashing is a little gray, and I think that's something you need to be able to take very strongly, and as one to one ask people to be respectful, saying, I know he's very friendly for you, but for us we get a little scared, please put him on leash. He doesn't do anything. Like how we negotiate, we just have to do this. As a pet parent, I can tell you I am mortified by people like this. I wish, I have seen people in the park who are just so entitled and so irrational when it comes to following rules.
Okay, so we are at anybody with a question, please unmute right now. We'll end the program in a minute. If you have any question, you can take it up just now. Anyone?
I have one point,
Yeah,
Raj,
go
I
ahead.
just wanted to make. I do remember what you said earlier. When this conflict thing happens, I just want to share with you that, say, about, as I said, more 2025. I remember when I started working, I used to be on my kinetic Honda and I used to actually drive with my legs like this, because those dogs would chase me. And I used to be so frightened. It took me a long time to realize that you have two choices to either collaborate or confront. I went around with a horrible, very unhealthy packet of Parle G biscuits in my bag. Honestly, that's the best thing you have. The moment some food goes out, it just makes the situation easier. So I'm saying rather than harden our stances, especially since I've said that the law does not allow you to relocate or kill any dogs, why don't we just try and be a little more friendly? So throw some biscuits at a distance, whistle once in a while, go past. And if the dog chases you, stay still, call somebody in the neighborhood. If anybody in your neighborhood is friendly with dogs, walk with them. There was a lady who called us, I think Aruna remembered, that she had been bitten by a dog some time back and she's very scared to go back on the street. All the animal lovers in the area are going to walk with her for the next 10 days. So she has the courage to walk on the streets. We are doing this because we believe that we understand her fear. But at the same time, we don't want to be inside the house, neither we can get the dogs out. So the human, like how we help each other out at C4C, Raj, any of us in the animal welfare community are happy to jump in to assist anybody who has a concern about animals for two reasons. One is because they're entitled to have it. And second, there's nobody better than me who can relate because I've been there. I really have. I was very scared of dogs. So I'll hand that over back to you, as I said, back again to collaboration rather than confrontation on any issue, whether it's this or whether it is, in regular civic life. Collaboration is, I think, always the key, and a little bit of love.
That's amazing. I think I will just say that I learned a lot today. Aruna, you can do the honors.
Yeah. Thank you, Priya. That was so enlightening, and I like both sides of the story. You have responsibilities as well as you have duties and responsibilities, and um, it was absolutely thanks for sharing your knowledge with all of us. And on behalf of all of us at C4C, thank you all for attending this session. And thank you, Priya, on behalf of C4C and all of us here. Thank you for taking the time out to do this for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Raj.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.